All right, buckle up, everyone, because today we are diving deep, and I mean deep, into the world of Valorant's resident soul snatcher, Reyna.
Ooh, I like that soul snatcher.
Right. It's the perfect way to describe her. She's got this whole aura of, I don't know, taking what she wants, almost like a force of nature.
Totally, and that's what makes her so fascinating to explore. We're gonna unpack not just how to dominate as Reyna, but also what makes her tick, Like, what's the story behind those piercing eyes?
Exactly. We got to go beyond the gameplay. And speaking of story, let's talk about that intriguing background, because Reyna, she's not your typical Radiant, is she? I mean, we get those hints of Mexican heritage, but then bam, she's literally draining life force from people. That's not something you see every day, even in Valorant.
It's like, where does that even come from? We see other Radiants tapping into energy, but Reyna's powers feel different, almost ancient, like something out of old legends.
Right. It's like she's channeling something primal. One minute, she's dropping lines in Spanish, and the next, she's feasting on the souls of her enemies. Talk about a culture clash.
Yeah.
So is this whole soul siphoning thing common in Valorant lore? Have we seen other agents with similar abilities?
That's what makes Reyna so unique. While other Radiants have their own ways of manipulating energy, Reyna's connection to life and death, that raw power, it's in a league of its own. It really makes you wonder, what else is there? Like, what don't we know about Radiant potential?
It's kind of terrifying when you think about it, and it makes you wonder, where does it come from? Because we get these little hints about her past, specifically her sister. It's almost like there's this unspoken loss that fuels her.
Oh, absolutely. The source material is pretty vague, but when you listen to her voice lines, the way she says, "For you, Hermanita," it sends chills down your spine. It implies a depth of pain, a reason for her ruthlessness.
Yeah, it's like she's carrying this weight around with her, this need for vengeance or closure. It's definitely not your average hero backstory. All right, I'm already hooked, and we're just scratching the surface here. But before we get too lost in the lore rabbit hole, let's shift gears and talk about how all of this translates into actual gameplay. Because if her story is anything to go by, Reyna's abilities are going to be as intense as they come.
Oh, you have no idea. Get ready to unleash the fury, because Reyna's kit is all about aggression, precision, and making your enemies pay.
Ooh, I am so ready for this.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's break down this killer kit, pun intended. First up, we got Lear, and I gotta say, just the name itself sounds intimidating, right? Like, what's it gonna do? Stare into my soul and make me question my life choices?
Basically.
Haha, okay, not really, but in a way, it kind of does, right? It's not your typical flashbang. It's like this creepy eye that goes through walls, messing with people's heads.
Exactly. It's all about mind games. So imagine, right? You're pushing into a site, feeling confident, and bam, Lear pops through the wall. It's disorienting, it breaks their focus, and suddenly they're vulnerable.
Yeah, it's like a jump scare, but in a tactical shooter. Okay, but let's talk about the ability that really sets Reyna apart, that puts the soul in Soul Snatcher Devour.
Ah, yes. The ability that lets Reyna thrive in the chaos.
So for those unfamiliar, this is where she heals by draining the life force of downed enemies. It's brutal, it's efficient, and honestly, it's kind of metal.
Yeah.
So from a gameplay perspective, how does this mechanic change the way you approach a fight as Reyna, compared to, say, a Jet who dashes away or a Phoenix who heals over time?
With Reyna, you're not just looking for kills, you're hunting for sustenance. Every enemy becomes a potential health pack, and that changes everything.
It's like she's playing a different game within the game.
Right. She gets stronger with every soul she claims, so it encourages this really aggressive, almost predatory playstyle.
But that aggression can be a double-edged sword, right? You're out there taking risks, putting yourself in the line of fire to get those kills. That's where Dismiss comes in, this super slick movement ability. And it's more than just a repositioning tool, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Dismiss is Reyna's trump card.
Because it's not just about escaping, it's about creating those "did that just happen" moments. 1 minute she's there, gunning you down, and the next, poof, vanished.
Gone. And your team is left wondering, where did she go? Is she flanking? Did she just disappear? It creates this paranoia, this uncertainty, and that's where Reyna thrives.
Oh man, I can only imagine the rage quits. It's like psychological warfare on top of already being a total badass.
Yeah.
But it gets even crazier when you combine Dismiss with her ultimate, Empress.
Right. We're talking next level mind games.
Because suddenly, Dismiss isn't just repositioning you, it's making you invisible for a short time. It's like she becomes this phantom assassin flitting in and out of existence.
And that's just one part of it. I mean, Empress amplifies everything that makes Reyna terrifying. Faster fire rate, automatic devour, reduced ability cooldowns. She becomes a force of nature.
It's like she goes from predator to apex predator in the blink of an eye.
Okay.
So you pop Empress, and it's like unleashing the Kraken, right?
Yeah.
Everything speeds up. Every kill fuels you. It's intoxicating. But, like, it can't just be about running around like a mad woman, right? There's got to be some strategy involved, yeah.
Oh, definitely. Empress is powerful, but it's not invincible. It's more like, think of it as a high-risk, high-reward gamble. You gotta play smart, choose your battles, and use the enhanced dismiss to create those impossible-to-counter plays.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and think you're invincible. But what happens when you misjudge a peak, or you don't get that early kill as Reyna, and suddenly you're the one low on health, no souls to steal?
That's the thing with Reyna, you gotta commit. If you hesitate, if we're not confident in your aim, she's gonna fall flat. You gotta own that aggression, and that can be tough for some players.
Absolutely. So for those out there who are just picking up Reyna, trying to master this soul-siphoning playstyle, what's your advice? What separates the wannabe Reynas from the ones who truly strike fear into the hearts of their enemies?
I always say start slow. Reyna's all about mastering the fundamentals, get comfortable with her leer, learn how to use it to create space for yourself and your team, then start incorporating Devour. Learn to use those kills to fuel your aggression, but always have an escape plan with Dismiss. Remember, positioning is everything for a duelist like Reyna.
Solid advice. And speaking of Dismiss, we talked about how it's an amazing escape tool, but one thing I wanted to touch on is how effective it can be in post-plant situations. For those who haven't experienced the joy of a Reyna lurking in the shadows after the spike is down, it's pretty much the ultimate mind game.
Oh, absolutely. It's like you said, a mind game. You've planted the spike, you're the last one alive, tensions are high, and instead of holding an angle and giving away your position, bam, you get a kill with Empress activated and vanish with Dismiss. Suddenly, the enemy team has no idea where you are, what you're doing. It creates this uncertainty that can completely dismantle their defenses.
So it's not even just about repositioning, it's about psychological warfare. You're in their heads rent-free.
Exactly. And that's Reyna in a nutshell. She's not just deadly with her abilities, she's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. It's a whole other level of strategy and mind games.
And it makes you think, like, we've just scratched the surface of her character, right? We've talked about her abilities, her playstyle, but there's still so much we don't know about her motivations, about that mysterious sister, about the events that led her to become this soul-siphoning force of nature. What aspects of her lore intrigue you most?
Ugh, so many questions, like what happened to her sister? Was she a Radiant too? And what does that tell us about Reyna's connection to her powers, to this life and death energy she wields so effortlessly? I'd love to explore the folklore, the mythology behind her abilities, maybe tie in some ancient Mexican legends. It's like there's this whole other layer to her waiting to be uncovered.
Right, it's like she walks straight out of a myth and onto the Valorant battlefield. And that's what I love about this game and this show. It leaves you wanting more.
Always digging deeper, right?
Exactly. Well, on that note, dear listeners, we'll leave you to ponder the mysteries of Reyna, Valorant soul-siphoning duelist. Until next time, stay curious, stay sharp, and never underestimate the power of a little soul-snatching action.